The Daggerheart core set officially releases today. So have Critical Role and Darrington Press made a massive mess or a modern masterpiece out of their new TTRPG system? We'll bring you our brutally honest review to help you find out.
Reveal the truth.
Before we dive into the review of one of the biggest new TTRPG systems in years, why not take a second to hit those like and subscribe buttons to help us keep content like this video coming. And then, let's talk some Daggerheart. We've had our copy of the Daggerheart core set for a little over a week, and have had time to read it cover to cover, sort through all the cards, and marinate on our thoughts a little before this review. And after taking some time, we've decided the best way to break up this review is in 3 parts: quality, mechanics, and audience appeal. And if you're curious about my credentials to give such review, I'd say 2 things very quickly. 1, never take anyone's opinion about a work like this as facts, mine included, as we encourage you to make your own decisions and choices and simply use this as a bit of a guide to the process. And 2, the biggest problem I have in my game room at the moment is that my giant beholder is obscuring the view of my wall full of maps of all my favorite fantasy role-playing settings. His name is Bumpy Steve, and he's a very good boy. Now that that's out of the way, let's talk about quality. Daggerheart's core set is made to an extremely high standard in terms of the materials, the layout of the book, and even the packaging of everything in the core set. While it may not be quite as breathtakingly beautiful as the upcoming Cosmere RPG books, it comes very, very close, which is an incredible achievement for this being their first full-fledged TTRPG system. Sorry Candela, but even Critical Role pitched you as more of an offshoot of the greater Illuminated World system than a standalone book. The art in the book is top-notch, and frankly some of the pieces are even better than what we've seen from D&D in the last few years. And the layout itself goes from clean, familiar, and easy-to-read tables full of items, equipment, and the like, to fun new twists on the layout of the pages for things like Ancestries, where you get these beautiful, full-color images surrounded by sketches of alternate concepts and variations of those ancestries in a way that we haven't really seen done before. The entire book is also beautifully organized by color-coded tabs on the side, something we would often associate with Pathfinder and Paizo books, and it makes navigating the book substantially easier. And the cover and the pages are both sturdy and high quality, and feel firmly bound to the center spine, even with the book left wide open. The cards are made of a thick, durable cardstock that has a pleasant matte finish and just enough texture to not slip out of your hands easily. And the packaging of the holder for those cards, even in the standard edition, is equally high quality and robust. The art on both the cards and in the book itself is the clear standout of this release, as Critical Role and Darrington spared no expense on hiring some of the best talent in the industry to create stunning visuals for nearly every page and on every card. And speaking of art, it appears that Critical Role doesn't hold a grudge for Archon the Cruel, aka Joe Manganiello, after stealing the hand of Vecna and becoming the one major antagonist to really get one over on the cast and get away with it. As if you look at the art on the Seraph page, their version of the Paladin, which was the class of Archon the Cruel, that sure looks exactly like Joe Manganiello. So it seems like they decided to let bygones be bygones with this fun little wink back to Campaign 1. That said, the quality here is top-notch, equaling if not exceeding the standard we expect from big companies like Paizo and Wizards of the Coast, so we have to give the quality rating a 5 out of 5 for that. Next, let's talk mechanics. Do the core rules of Daggerheart really work? Is there a lack of equipment, items, or spells the way that we saw with D&D 5th edition on launch? And basically, does this system simply make sense and achieve its goal of offering a slightly streamlined but still deeply evocative and engaging encounter system? This is a bit tricky because of how Darrington Press has chosen to address the quote-unquote crunch of their system. For those Pathfinder and D&D 3.5 fans out there expecting a super streamlined system with little to no options, complex mechanics, or interesting ability combinations, you will instead find that while the base classes themselves, with only their 2 core archetypes to choose from, may perhaps be a bit too limited or streamlined at launch, all the crunch you get comes within the domain cards instead. Darrington has decided that the domain system, which sees you mixing and matching your abilities through the 2 domains tied to your class, is where all of their crunch will wind up. And some very mechanically interesting combos can be found in them, allowing for some very tailored and customized characters once you have a couple levels under your belt. Now, having these all as cards instead of table after table in a rules book that you would need to reference constantly does make the game more accessible and still provide that necessary complexity that many TTRPG veterans crave. But we do admit that there are some fans who simply will not be on board because the idea of a card-based system just won't appeal to them. And that is one of the sacrifices Daggerheart appears prepared to make to make the onboarding process with their new system easier for fans of all knowledge levels. But more on that in the audience appeal section here in a second. The Hope and Fear system now has more examples on how GMs can interact with their fear accumulation, and honestly the D12 system is a welcome change just because for those math nerds out there, it adds curving to the results of the dice roll, instead of the pure randomness of a single D20. So certain rolls become more likely, in this case 13 being the most common result, and then everything getting incrementally more rare the further away from 13 you get in either direction, which can now in turn allow you to better plan your turns and have a better grasp of your likelihood of success on attacks and ability, because you'll have a more reliable outcome to go off of. While we would have liked to see maybe one more archetype for each of the Daggerheart classes, the wealth of options you get from your communities, ancestries, and domain cards gives you an incredible amount of customization in a way that is still very easy to understand and track. And the 2D12 system works as intended for fast combat and encounters, while also providing some fun narrative stakes to every roll. The cards will still be a bit divisive for some fans no matter how well done they are, but mechanically we'd give Daggerheart a very strong 4 out of 5. And finally, let's talk about the target audience of Daggerheart. As seen by clever Easter eggs like the Joe Manganiello Seraph art, this is a game that happily acknowledges its Critical Role roots, but that also provides enough crunch and mechanics and customization to appeal to veteran TTRPG players of all stripes, fans and non-fans alike, while making it more accessible in the form of easy to reference and sort cards for those new fans who maybe haven't even played in a TTRPG before. The book also does a great job of balancing expansive tables of items, weapons, and more that get those old school TTRPG veterans blood pumping, with some big, beautiful art layouts throughout the book to keep it all visually appealing for the newer players. Daggerheart does a good job of seeming simple on the surface while gradually opening up with more and more options to a degree it can almost be overwhelming once you hit the highest levels of campaigns. The other huge play they've made for newer TTRPG fans or people who have perhaps never played a TTRPG before in their life is the built-in frames or campaign settings of Daggerheart, which all heavily feature massive pop culture influences that will appeal to everyone from anime fans with their delicious and dungeon-themed Beast Feast setting, which we've talked about on the channel here, to gamers who might enjoy the Zelda-esque Witherwild setting, or their incredible Colossus of the Drylands setting, which is part Red Dead Redemption and part Shadow of the Colossus. Daggerheart is clearly casting a very wide net with their core set, while still offering enough customization and crunch, cleverly hidden in their card-based domain, ancestry, and communities, to keep veteran players interested. So we'd have to give their audience appeal a rating of 4.5 out of 5. So all in all, that leaves us with a average of 4.5 out of 5-star rating for our Daggerheart review. If you were worried it might not be complex enough for veteran TTRPG players, we suggest you stop worrying. If you were afraid the players would just be creating the narrative on the fly, there are in fact rules to allow them some input into the world, but the GM is the one firmly steering the ship in most instances. If you were worried it would be cheaply made and rushed out the door for a quick buck, this is a high quality product that looks like it will hold up to many years of abuse in your backpack or sliding on and off your bookshelf every weekend. And the only qualifier we would add is, if you are simply not interested in the idea of having a card-based ability system versus having a super detailed character sheet or a ton of tables to reference, or you just don't want cards in your TTRPGs for whatever reason, Daggerheart will not be the game for you. But for everyone else, we suggest you go to your local game store, many of which are hosting launch events today where they will guide you through an adventure in Daggerheart, and see if you agree that Daggerheart could be the TTRPG you'll wind up playing for years to come. So what do you think about Daggerheart? Leave your thoughts and reviews in the comments, and don't forget to hit those like and subscribe buttons.